Shalom Akim, all praise and glory to Yahweh Bashim, Yahweh Shai Bashim, Kakadash. Double honor to the apostles of Great Millstone, salutation to you Akim, doing the work in truth and sincerity. Now, this video is about the FBA and is inspired by me talking to one of the ladies that I work with, and other encounters I had with Jake that consider themselves FBA, and the things that they said. Like one guy out there on the street when we was preaching, probably about a month ago now, was calling himself the FBA, and then he was using the term $5 Indians. And there's several doctrines with FBAs that make no sense, and that's basically what I'm getting into today. You see on the screen, the AI definition of FBA, which I'm going to read. And it says, Foundational Black American, FBA, is a Black American who is a direct descendant of enslaved Africans brought to the United States, recognized for their unique historical and cultural lineage. Definition and origins. Foundational Black Americans are descendants of Black people who were enslaved in the United States and contributed to building the nation from its early foundations. Unlike the broader term African American, which includes all Black individuals of African descent, FBA specifically refers to those whose ancestry is rooted in American slavery and the early free Black communities. The term was popularized by filmmaker and activist Tariq Nasheed, who emphasizes lineage and historical connection to the United States rather than recent African or Caribbean immigration. So it's explained quite well. That's basically what an FBA was from the beginning. When Tariq first coined the term, and it made sense, because at that time a lot of immigrants were being recognized for talking shit, if you will, about the so-called Negroes that were enslaved in America. That's where you get certain videos like the one from the Daily Wrap-Up Crew, where the Haitian woman came on there, or was invited on there to talk, and her first response, she didn't even sit down good, and her first response was dirty Black Americans. And she's like, that's what we are, and that's what she was taught and growing up. And a lot of so-called Africans, Africans from the continent, a lot of them, explained that they were taught the same thing. Don't trust those blacks, and don't associate with Black Americans and all this other stuff. And that's basically sparked that basically sparked the delineation movement. If you don't know what delineation means, it means basically a detailed separation. So then the term was coined, and they start coming up with more ideas from there. And the FBA was basically to separate so-called Negroes that were from slavery to separate so-called Negroes from slavery from the other Negroes that came over here through immigration and other means, because they separate themselves whenever they make any accomplishment. But they're looked at as just another African American if they do any criminal activity. So they get the benefits and give it to their specific communities, but when they do something negative, is put on every Black person, every African American person that there is. So the phrase was coined FBA, which honestly, it's understandable. Of course, I don't agree with it because we're Israelites, but since then, the FBA movement has evolved. Like I was mentioning, the one FBA that talked to us on the street, talking about $5 Indian, and another thing that they evolved to is saying that they've been here. And yes, yes, I've heard Tariq Nasheed actually say that as well. No, nigga. Just because you mad at other communities of Jake, don't mean that you was already here. Most of you niggas are just niggas, man. And yes, I'm saying it harshly and in a harsh way because a lot of Jakes, a lot of so-called Negroes, since they experience racism or hate from another group of Jakes, they will go to the extreme and just say shit like they ain't related to us. They don't got nothing to do with us. We been here, we from here. You know, it's like, come on, Jake, man. You use your thinking brain, man. Don't use the parasites in your gut to think, man. Just use your brain. You know. So there are several points I'm gonna bring up. First, we're not black. And yes, I'm bringing up that point because we're not black. You know, this is etymology online, the study of root words, etymology. Okay, black was used of dark-skinned people in Old English, of coffee with nothing added, attested by 1796. The meaning, fierce, terrible, wicked, is from late 14th century, before 1796, late 14th century. The figurative sense often comes from the notion of without light, moral or spiritual. Latin, nigger, had many of the same figurative senses: gloomy, unlucky, bad, wicked, malicious. The metaphoric use of the Greek word melis, however, tended to reflect the notion of shrouded in darkness, overcast. In English, it has been color of sin and sorrow, at least since the 1300s. So even before that. A sense of with dark purposes, malignant, emerged from 1580. In black art necromancy, it is also the sense of black magic. When you call yourself black, you're attesting all of these things to yourself. We are not black. Now, when they used to refer to so-called dark-skinned people in the old days, they would use, and I get this from the brother GMS Maccabee and Spirits channel. He's the first one to bring this out, you know, in recent times. They refer to you as swarthy or tawny. Swarthy meaning dark skin. Let's see. Okay, swarthy. Swarthy, dark colored, tawny, especially in reference to skin. Explain alteration swarthy. Dark colored or dark skin. And they already have what is it? Tawny here. So let's look up tawny. Tawny, tan colored. Later, especially brown with dark or dull yellowish orange. Mid 14th century, tawny. So that's basically what we were called back then. Either swarthy, dark colored skin, or tawny, which is brown colored skin. Because we have a range of skin tones. We're not black. And that's why you shouldn't use that term black, because it is associated with negativity. Associated with straight up negativity. So, you know, the foundational black Americans, no, you should get rid of that term as well. Foundational swarthy American would be better. Foundational tawny Americans, you know, black is the term that your enemy gave you. Understand, it was never a term meant for you to look good in the eyes of any other people. So they just called you black, same as if they called you a nigger. And nigger was not even a bad term back then. It was, well, actually it was, because it meant the same as black. As it says here, Latin nigger had many of the same figurative senses. So when you say you black, you just calling yourself a nigger, hard ER. So it's the same thing. And these are the definitions. So whoever understands can understand it. So you shouldn't call yourself black in any sense of the word. Then we get to the people who were here. Matter of fact, before we even get there, because I actually wanted to look this up. There you go. And for some reason, it's slower than usual. Now, this has never happened. This is crazy right here. Wow. Okay, there we go. Ephesians 4:14. That we henceforth be no more children tossed to and fro and carried about with every wind of doctrine, by the sleight of man, cunningness, and cunning craftiness. Matter of fact, it just said it. By the sleight of man and cunning craftiness, whereby they lie and wait to deceive. And you FBAs have been deceived, man. And y'all running head first with it. It's like, no, you are not the ones that were already here. It was actually the northern kingdom that was here. The so-called natives and Latinos. Because contrary to popular belief, the so-called Latinos are basically the descendants of the natives of the lands. Yes. The so-called Latinos are the descendants of the natives of the Americas. They may be called Mexican, Puerto Rican, from the Dominican Republic, all that shit. They are actually the descendants of the native peoples of the lands. So yes, the Latinos are our brothers. Whether they want to believe it or not, whether they're racist or not, they want to be Edomites or not, they are still our people. And that's the thing that Jake get caught up in. You get upset at our people for doing racist bullshit, and then you equate them with so-called white people. And that's another doctrine that the FBAs carry. That's why that dude was talking about $5 Indian, and the girl I was talking to today is talking about the Mexicans aren't our people, they just white people. It's like, no, man. No, that's not it. You don't know. All you are is upset because you listen to, some other FBAs, and then they gave you this explanation, and you just copied off that. No, that's not it, Jake. That's not it, Judah. That's not it. All right. One of Hosea chapter 7 verse 6. For they, matter of fact, there it is, 7 verse 8, Salakia. Ephraim, which are known as the Puerto Ricans today. Ephraim hath mixed himself among the people. Ephraim is a cake not turned. The Ephraimites would be considered tawny. You look at the so-called Mexicans, which is the tribe of Issachar. They are light skinned, and yes, their hair color, their hair texture is different. Not every Israelite from the famous saying with packed with wisdom from Elder Apostle Gabar. Not every Israelite looks like John Shaft. Okay? Some Israelites actually look like John Leguizamo. And another unpopular opinion, some Israelites actually look like the other nations. You're going to encounter the speckled bird Israelite that looks just like the other nations. A good example of that is that, that LGBT person, Andrew Tate. They look like Edomites. But guess what? Their dad is very swarthy. Very swarthy looking. And then there's another example of the basketball player. His name escapes me right now. But he got a Haitian dad, which is very swarthy as well. And he's super tawny. His hair texture is like Edomites. But he has a son, and by an Edomite wife, and his son looks just like an Edomite. But guess what? That's an Israelite. They're Israelites, him and his family. Why? Because his dad is an Israelite. And it's not about skin color. So that's number one, Second Ezra chapter 13, verse 40. Because this is how they got to the Americas in the first place. Those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoner out of their own land in the time of Osei the king, whom Salmanasar king of Assyria led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, so came they into another land. But they took this counsel among themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt. Because at this time there was nobody dwelt in the Americas. After their captivity, they had to do the ways of the heathen, or they had to leave. And guess what they did? They left. But they knew the way to get to a land where nobody dwelt. Why? Because King Solomon used to send his navy to this very same land and gather resources from it. Verse 42, that they might keep their statutes which they never kept in their own land. And they entered the Euphrates by the narrow places of the river, for the Most High then showed signs for them and held still the flood till they were passed over. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely 1.5 years, and the same region is called Asareth, and dwelt they there until the latter time, and now when they shall begin to come. So they came, they sailed past the Horn of Africa up to the South Americas and filtered from South, Central, and North America. That's how those natives got there. Not through what do they call it? The diaspora. It was they say that they got through the ice mountains or something like that. Basically the opposite direction. No, they didn't get there. They didn't get here through that way. They came from the Horn of Africa, and you can look at the sea currents to see how they got here after that. Because the Heavenly Father said he held still the flood. In other words, the rain didn't beat their ships down to drown them. The Heavenly Father made a way for them to get here safely. And when they got here, the Americas, safely, they stayed here until these times. The natives to the Americas. And the majority of the natives to the Americas were the Northern Kingdom, the so-called Latin tribes. So Yeah, you FBAs, we came from the transatlantic slave trade, which is documented history. The majority of you who's trying to escape that, no, you came from the transatlantic slave trade. Most of you that's calling yourselves FBA, most of you came from the transatlantic slave trade. Yes, the native peoples of this land did help us while we're in slavery, for the most part. That's a history that y'all seem to forget. But now y'all talking about y'all those people, and those people didn't. Those people the transatlantic slave trade mostly didn't exist. No, you got the wrong notion. Don't be carried away with every wind of doctrine. That's bullshit. The transatlantic slave trade is documented history that went on for about 3.5 centuries. 350 years. So you look at the transatlantic slave trade, this is what they say about it. The transatlantic slave trade forcibly transported 10 to 12 million Africans to the Americas between the 16th and 19th centuries as part of a triangular trade system. That's what happened to us. Overview. The transatlantic slave trade was a segment of the global slave trade in which enslaved Africans were captured, sold, and transported across the Atlantic to the Americas from the 16th to the 19th century, with estimates of 10 to 12 million people affected. It was a central component of the triangular trade where European goods such as arms, textiles, wine were shipped to Africa. Enslaved Africans were transported to the Americas, and commodities like sugar, coffee, and tobacco were sent back to Europe. That was the triangular trade, or aka the transatlantic slave trade. They traded goods for slaves. As it is written, a boy for what is it? A boy for a gun, a girl for wine, something like that. No, a matter of fact, a boy for a harlot and a girl for wine, as it is written. So, yes, the transatlantic slave trade is a real thing that happened to you so-called Negroes in America, which Jesse Jackson later coined the term African American. But yes, we were transported from the continent that is called now Africa to the continent that is now called America. That actually happened. So let's go further. And then, I typed in ports the African slaves were taken from. And it says, for 3.5 centuries, European slavers carried African captives across the Atlantic in slave ships originating from ports belonging to all major European maritime powers: Spain, Portugal, the Netherlands, Denmark, Sweden, Britain, France, and Brandenburg, Prussia. So all these ports were all over Europe. And of course, I went to Wikipedia and also brought up, to see the images. And we know a lot of these images. This is one of the images when they were selling slaves from over here. Charles Floor, I don't know the region, but this is a real thing. This actually happened. What is it? British Providence of South Carolina. Charleston, South Carolina. So, and as you go through, they show images of the ships that Jakes was brought over from Africa. It basically just shows you, how you got here. Ports and shit, because this is what the blue dots represent, ports. Just a lot of different images of, what Noah, Ham, this is what Esau believed. The curse of Ham, which is bullshit. But you know, these are images of ports. This is a real place that actually had, you know, slaves. You know, and you know, my point to showing these images is so you can have visible picture of it, man. This is an actual port in what is it? Uh Gori, Senegal. This is a real place. It's a tourist site now, but it's a real place. The transatlantic slave trade is a real thing that actually happened. And that's why I'm showing these images. You know, they showing the routes, and guess what? In these routes, the currents basically show the same thing. Because the sea has currents. You can't just sail the sea and go wherever you want in any direction you want. The currents will take you where the currents will take you. You know? So yeah, these are actual images. Like I said, I'm doing this to show you Jakes, you ones you call yourselves FBA, that the transatlantic slave trade was real and it happened to you. You weren't just here. This isn't a narrative that Esau came up with. This is actual true history. And it's a big part of history, especially the history of America. It's a huge part of the history of America. And you happen to be part of it. But you want to deny it because you're angry at the Northern Kingdom or some of the other of our brethren that's on the continent called Africa, that comes over here, that's been colonized, and think that Esau is the end all be all of greatness. Hey, they just been brainwashed like a lot of you Jakes. But now you Jakes over here. But now a lot of you Judites over here are brainwashing yourselves with a whole nother doctrine. So let's see. I got Deuteronomy 28 and 37. And thou shalt become astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whither the Lord Yahweh, Hashem Yahweh Shai, shall lead thee. And that proverb and byword, if you call, whether you call black or nigger or negro or anything else, it's still a proverb and a byword. Especially black and nigger, man. And that's what we're known as in these times. And the Northern Kingdom got their own proverbs and bywords that Esau and the other nations call them, man. But mainly the stigma is either black or nigger, man. That is that proverb and byword, because they're not calling us Israelites from our respective tribes, because another nation is attempting to steal that, and the other nations are with it. Psalms the 83rd chapter. And then the end of this is Deuteronomy 28 and 68. And Yahweh shall bring thee into Egypt, which is bondage, again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. We will see our land no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bond men, slave men, and bond women, slave women. And no man shall buy you, meaning no man shall redeem you. No man shall save you out of this captivity. The only one that can save us out of this captivity is our Lord and Savior, Yahweh Shai, man. Once the Most High, Yahweh, sent his son, Yahweh Shai, back to return and to gather us up, that's our only salvation. because hey, otherwise these devils would rather destroy us and destroy the planet before they give us up. So divine intervention is necessary. And it's going to be 12,000 from each tribe. And 1/3 of you Negroes, Latinos, and Natives. Yes, it's gonna be those three so-called people groups, man. And you people calling yourselves FBA, man. Hey, you need to get it right, man. Get a hold of yourself, man. You may be delineating because you're part of this carnal-minded world, but guess what? That's not what you are. Wake up, study to show yourself approved as is written. And with that, I'm going to end it there. All praises and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashim Kwapadash. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone. Salutation to you, I can do in the work of truth, sincerity. Till the next time, Shalom.